Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program today. Website thisweekinamerica.us. Back with us on the program, best-selling author Kathleen Brady. She's a certified career management coach with more than 25 years of experience helping people identify and realize their professional career goals. Kathleen is a sought-after industry speaker and coach, expertise in finding employment, career management, and professional advancement. She founded Brady and Associates Career Planners LLC in 2003. She's the CEO to this day. After starting out as a career counselor in Columbia Law School's placement office, transitioning to the Assistant Dean of Career Services at Fordham University School of Law, managing the hiring process as the National Director of Staff Recruitment and Development at a national law firm. Now she's Director of Career Development and an instructor at Georgian University in New Jersey. And I mentioned a best-selling author, and I'm out of breath reading everything that you do. You have to do it every day. Are you taking a nap during the middle of the afternoon to get through here? Kathleen Brady back with us on the program, an updated version of her book, Get a Job. It's great to have you back on the show. And you are one of the busiest people I know.
I love doing it all, and it's all integrated, and it's, I have that life balance that I want and having fun doing what I do.
It's interesting because you mentioned integration. You really see all aspects, and you've dealt with all aspects of the job search from the educational standpoint up to somebody who's been in a career for 30 years and suddenly finds out they're not real satisfied. They'd like to find something else. A lot of people now entering the job market, and something you focus on in the book and in dealing with job seekers is point of entry jobs. It's a fascinating concept, something that I believe is fairly new. Talk about that. Exactly what do you mean by point of entry jobs?
It's interesting whether you are looking for your first job just graduating from college, like some of the students I work with now at Georgian, or even if you are re-entering after some time away, or you're trying to do something different. Maybe, you've been in journalism for a long time and now you want to see how else can I use that. You have to think about where is the best opportunity to get in the game. So some of that point of entry is not necessarily the last job. It shouldn't be the last job you have. It's how do I get started? So particularly if you're trying to make a lateral move, you might be taking a step back, but you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning because you don't want to discount the career path that you've had and the skills you've already developed. So think about what's my best point of entry? What's my hook to get in there now and get started and kind of take yourself to the next level in that career path.
A word we hear now so often associated with everything is forever. We're looking for a forever house. We're looking for a forever whatever. Do young people look for the forever job, or do they understand this is a job that will get me started? I may not be here forever, and that's okay, because we came up with a generation that you were sort of thinking like, okay, I'm going to find a great job, and I'm going to write this out for 40 years.
It's so interesting. I don't know that they're thinking so much forever, but they're afraid of making a mistake. So there's this fear of, if I take this job, it will close off all these other options. And so rather than see this as this is your point of entry and you want to go to a place that's going to open more options as opposed to close options. So it's less about thinking it's forever and more about worrying about making an error. So they stay stuck.
Kathleen Brady, our guest on the program. Her website is very simple, careerplanners.net. The new book, the updated version, 10 Steps to Career Success. Get a Job information available, and you can link on directly to Kathleen's website at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. One of the first things you talk about is coming up with marketing materials, and there's so many facets under marketing materials. Let's talk about that. Is that like the first step that someone should look into as they're thinking, okay, I'm going to take myself into the marketplace now. I got my college degree. I'm looking now for that first job.
Yeah. I think the first step, in order to prepare those marketing materials, you have to do that self-assessment. So you have to know what you're selling. So you've got to think and kind of catalog, what are my skills, what are my talents, what are my special knowledges. You got to do a little research on the world of work and think about what are they looking for, what do they care about, and then prepare your marketing materials to tell your story well.
It's interesting. And as you're dealing with young people, and back now in dealing with young people, Director of Career Development and an instructor at Georgian University, is this something that the kids are getting, the students are getting in college, or is this something that, whoops, I'm out there pretty much by myself in the marketplace now, and I have to do the assessment myself and figure out what order I attack this process?
Well, I'm chuckling because they get it now at Georgian Court. Now
Somehow I thought that was going to be the case.
And I think some colleges do a really good job at that. Other colleges not so much. And at Georgian Court, we actually have classes that they take for credit. I teach a class on career and internship preparation where we spent most of the time talking about self-assessment, and we do something called the Highlands Ability Battery with them, which makes them sort of see what are your natural gifts and talents, and then how do you use that information to tell your story. And I'm amazed at some of these students. They have such remarkable stories when I sort of beat it out of them. And, I work really hard to get that information out of them and say, that is great. I mean, you've overcome all of these things and some obstacles. And we have a lot of non-traditional students that use that to your advantage, tell that story well. And people will be so impressed that not only did you graduate from college, but you graduated from college while holding down a full-time job, while taking care of sick parents and, doing all these other things. It gives people a different impression of you. So it's all in how you tell the story.
So those are really attributes that actually can work to our favor. We're so stuck up on multitasker and all these other buzzwords, and we'll talk about that in a second, that we sort of overlook who we actually are as a person, which is the basis of our selling point.
Right. I always laugh because I think one of the reasons Oprah is so well received by people is she uses that expression, you have to be your authentic self. Be who you are. And sometimes what you might think of as your greatest weakness, you use that information and share it in terms of being positive and show it as a strength. And other people might think of it as a weakness if you let them. So reframe it for them and show them why it's a skill and it's a benefit for them. And that may be, it's funny, I was working with someone earlier this morning who's got a career in the library for 40 years. And I don't want people to know I'm old. Well, no, you want to show people that the information technology has changed vastly since you started, from hard copies and microfiche to now research databases. And you were able to ride that wave and learn the new skills all along the way. That's remarkable. So you could let them think of you as old, or you could say, look how I can grow with the times. That's a strength instead of a weakness.
The book, an updated version, is Get a Job, 10 Steps to Career Success. Our guest on the program, Kathleen Brady. Her website is careerplanners.net. The book's available all across the country, and, of course, information, and you can log on directly to Kathleen's website at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. As you're beginning to, and I mentioned the marketing, I guess one of the things you need to do before you really put yourself out there, there's several things you need to do. One is social media cleanup. And let's talk about that, because you're dealing with maybe the first generation coming out that has to go back and do some social media cleanup. I didn't have that problem, but many people do now. Do they understand the significance of what you really need to look this over before you're putting it out there?
I'm not sure they do yet, because if you think about it, their whole experience, and for many of them, their first interactions with a lot of people were through the internet. So a lot of their stuff has been online. That's how they've built their relationships. And so they don't necessarily see the world through the boomer eyes that I have, their employer eyes. We're a little bit older, and there are some things better left unsaid and unpublished. So trying to get them, not to say don't do this or don't do that, because I don't think this generation responds well to that, but more of when you look, when people my age and people in authority see that stuff, this is what we're thinking. Is that what you mean to convey to us? And employers. And so look at it through our eyes and help them see how we're seeing it. And then they can make their decisions about whether they want to leave it on or not leave it on.
It's interesting because some people will look at social media and think, wow, I better go back because that could hurt me. I'm assuming it can help you as well. And you talk a lot about networking. Is this a great source if you use it wisely to network?
Yeah, I think it could be phenomenal. First of all, you don't have to keep updating your Rolodex like we used to have to do. Yes. Everything's on LinkedIn. And so people move, relationships that maybe you don't talk to every day, every week. And then you find out, they're at the exact company that you're looking for a contact in, and you've known them for years, but you just kind of lost track of them. So it's easy to keep track of people. And so I think that's fabulous. But I think what people need to do is, again, you don't want to do, just go around collecting business cards and stuff them in your pockets. It's about using it as a tool to build relationships. So if you want to link with me, for example, don't just say, hi, I'd like to link with you. put it in some context for me. Hi, I heard you on the Rick Batten show, and I thought you were great. I'd love to talk to you, or I'd love to add you to my network. Now there's a reason for us to connect. And so you've got to personalize those things, because we don't ever want to lose the personal touch, but the internet has made it very easy to keep in touch with a wide range of people.
As you're talking about networking in the book, Get a Job, the new updated version is available now. Get a Job, 10 Steps to Career Success. And networking, you talk about categorizing and then cultivating. For some people, cultivating is difficult because you feel like, I'm just asking for things that maybe somebody I haven't seen in 4 years. How do we go about cultivating and maybe get over that hesitation to reach out to somebody that could be very beneficial to us?
We say you've got to use a little bit of common sense here. So you always think about, if this person called me and asked me that exact same question, would I feel put upon? Would I feel like, oh, of course, I'd love to help? And ask for something that's reasonable. If somebody called and asked me, said, can I talk to you about your experience working at Georgian Court? Yeah, I'm happy to do that. If they called and said, could you get my kid into Georgian Court? Well, unless it's my best buddy that I'm willing maybe to call in a few chips for, I'm not sure that that's a fair question. So you've got to think about the nature of your relationship and ask for something that's reasonable that you wouldn't mind doing for somebody else. So a little common sense there.
You're talking about telling your story, and this becomes, it's interesting and it can certainly assist you, but how do we tell it? And this leads into resume. What's the proper format for a resume, and is that where we tell our story? Should a resume, I guess, be over a page long? I'm asking 3 or 4 different questions there, but I guess, how do we present that story in a resume form?
It's so hard to answer that question in a generic way. There are certainly best practices, but the one thing you want to think about is your resume represents you when you're not in the room. So you want to make sure it lays out the information that the reader wants to know. So you want to present the information that they care about first. You don't just want to kind of spit a chronological, kind of information dump of what
Right.
you've done. So do it in a way that they care about it. For example, I was working with a student who put herself through college by working at Burger King. But while she was in college, she had all of these amazing leadership experiences in student government and a number of different programs. But she opened with the fact that she had worked at Burger King. Well, that's part of her history, part of her story, but it's not the most important thing. So that should be a little bit lower on the resume. They care more about the leadership skills and the classes and the fact that she was a straight A student. Let's start with that and add the other things, kind of fill in the resume. In terms of whether or not it should be a page or more than a page, these days it doesn't make a difference. And I think, again, as long as you're telling your story well, but make sure you're putting information on that employers care about and you're using white space appropriately. Because I've seen people have so much white space that then they have 3 pages, where if you play with the layout and look at, make it attractive and scannable, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 page or 2.
Should we modify, maybe even adapt the resume depending on the job we're applying for?
Absolutely. Particularly these days, in a lot of ways, technology has made our lives easier, but it's also made it harder. Because now when we apply online, employers, God bless them, have some of the most ridiculous kind of screening mechanisms that the resume has to hit something like 95% of the keywords that they're looking for. And so if you haven't tailored your resume to the specific job description using their language, you might get screened out even though you're perfectly qualified for the job. So people get a little freaked out when you tell them they have to have a resume for each one. Once you've got your core resume, then you can cut and paste a little bit and flip the order of things depending on that job, maybe tweak the language a little bit to use, particularly corporations use different language for the exact same tasks. So you've got to make sure that you're telling your story in their language. It's a little bit like translating Italian into Spanish,
Yes.
It's similar, but you gotta use the exact right words or something will get lost in the translation.
If you're tempted to write for the screening process, whether that be somebody sitting there going through these manually or a computer process doing that, is that wrong?
Wait, say that. I'm not sure I
Well,
understand.
yeah, if we try to write it for the screening process, that we understand, okay, they've got like this computer program that's going to get me into the second batch of applicants for the job. Is that a mistake if we try to write it for the process?
No, I don't think it is, as long as you're being truthful. So if it's just a matter of sort of translating it, I don't want people to start putting things on their resume that they haven't got.
Right.
That's certainly not, that's not going to be, I mean, that might get them through the screening, but it's dishonest, and that's certainly not going to help you. So, but I think you want to be as close to telling your story in their language as you can be. But then again, you don't want to just apply online. That's when then you want to work in your network. Well, who do I know who might work at that company, or know somebody who works at that company? So then you can say, hey, I've applied for your job online. I was wondering if you have any insights into what I can do to make myself a more attractive candidate. Who would be the right person to follow up to make sure my resume gets in the right hands, and try and have that personal touch.
The book is called Get a Job, 10 Steps to Career Success, updated version. It's available. The author is Kathleen Brady, our guest on the program. Her website is careerplanners.net. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly and get that information. Books available all across the country. Several minutes left in the program. You talk a lot about action verbs, words that describe you. How crucial is that? Because, again, we sort of fall back, maybe they don't anymore, but I'm thinking we sort of fall back into we all use the same words to describe ourselves. What words should we be using when you're talking about action verbs that describe who we are?
I mean, I always say verbs have action. That's the whole point, and it shows there's a power in them in the way we perceive. So rather than use the passive voice, you want to tell people what you do. I research, I direct, I instruct, I counsel, coach. So you think about the things you do and describe them in that sort of boom, boom, boom kind of way, so that people feel the action, they feel the energy, and they go, wow, this is somebody I want to be part of, as opposed to responsibilities include blah, that's just a little, it doesn't have that same energy level.
These are all great tips, and that's what's so nice about the book, Get a Job. If this is the first job, if you've looking for a career change, if suddenly you're left without a job and you want to get back into the marketplace, tips in there for everybody. 10 Steps to Career Success. Get a Job. Kathleen Brady, our guest on the program. I'm going to take about 2 more minutes, and I think maybe we touched upon this before, but it's so important as I'm reading key executives talking about how they make a hiring decision. And so many say, before I really formulated an opinion after they leave, I go and I talk to like my assistant. I talk to people that met him in the hallway. I want to get the impression, I know they're going to be on their best behavior normally when they walk into my office. I want to see how they interact with people before they get to the big office. Is that something that we often overlook? And maybe it's not, we're so nervous, we're focused on the big presentation, we really don't even see the people that we're walking across to get into the office.
It's interesting. I always say those invisible people have so much power over your career,
Yes.
so they ought not be invisible. You want to smile and be gracious and charming from everybody, from the security guard who's checking your email downstairs, all the way up to when you're in the room with the important person making the decision, because all of those people are going to have a perspective on you, and you never know that sometimes it's that guy downstairs checking your ID coming in who's got a relationship with the head honcho, and he's going to say, wow, boy, that person who came in for the interview today, man, she was a mess. that when you've got to be on all the time, and when I say on, I don't mean phony. I mean you have to be who you are, and you want to think about the impression that everybody has of you, and people should be treated with respect and dignity, whether they're the decision maker or just someone that comes across your path.
So basically the interview starts as you enter the building, or maybe even get out of the car or walk off of the subway. That's when the interview process is beginning, and you should be aware of that.
Yeah, it might even begin before that. I always think about, that guy who cuts you off on the road, and then you're yelling and screaming and, cursing and on the road, and then you get in the elevator and you realize that's the guy you're having the interview with. You want to be on your best behavior all the time.
Okay, the interview starts as you're leaving home. Unless your dad is head of HR, the interview starts as you're leaving home. So much more to talk about. We will have Kathleen back on the program. The book is excellent. It's been updated. Get a Job, 10 Steps to Career Success. Kathleen Brady, our guest on the program. The website is careerplanners.net. The book is available all across the country, and information, of course, at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Kathleen, thank you for being with us on the program. I know you got 3 more jobs to go off to after we finish the program here. Great to have you with us, and look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Rick.
You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us.